4 years, 6 times. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that anymore. But I got him to do it anyway. And and then they asked me what I was, what I did and how I did it. Now, what it was relationships. Building on relationships, even people who don't know the other person all that well. And what I had done when since I created the award some years back, I was unhappy that he wasn't going to be on the list. And so when he was turned down when he turned down 6 times, I decided to write him a Hail Mary letter instead of just making a verbal request, or the others have been doing all along. And my comment to him, what I did was that I decided to go back to when we first met, when he and I first met, which was at the Roger Smith in Washington, D.C. in 1963. And then I walked through the years and whatever, and then I ended up with, what my end up was that that was 2 years before the event, 3 years ago, going through my linen closet at home. And I'm not much for linen closets. My wife Sally was, but after she died, I didn't pay a lot of attention. But I was looking for something, and I saw something sticking out from underneath with some towels and it was a soap wrapper. It was a bar of soap for Marriott motor hotels from way back. This was back from in the early 1930s. And I then took the wrapper out. I threw the soap away, and I threw the soap away, and I sent him. I made a photocopy, and I sent him a copy of that letter, of that wrapper. And then I got a call from his administrative assistant, who told me that Mr. Marriott would prefer to have the actual wrapper. Well, I didn't need it, so I said, sure. I put it in an envelope and I mailed it. And then it was about 4 weeks later, somebody who was, I was at a meeting, happened to be at the Marriott Marquis for no connection with anything. And this man from Renaissance came over to me, because there was a meeting going on that I was at, that he was at, and we had name tags, and he didn't know me at all, and I didn't know him, but he recognized my name and said, you were famous 2 weeks ago. I said, what do you mean I was famous 2 weeks ago? Well, it turned out, he then told me, that Bill Marriott had called a meeting with a lot of people attending, and it was about growth development over the next 10 years. How many more hotels they were going to have for each of the brands. And he didn't agree with the numbers that they had come up with. And according to the man from Renaissance, he said, well, Bill Marriott then started waving this piece of paper in his hand. And he said, I have this soap wrapper from Neil Ostergren, and this is when we had 4 hotels and we had 12 hotels in development. And now, if you do the math between then and now, and whatever, and then make a long story short, that they increased the number of hotels over that 10-year period. And so what I did to wrap up my letter to him to come to the dinner was I put in those other things that I mentioned, some other things, and then I said, I'm glad that the wrapper worked, because I learned from the meeting that you had, and so on and so forth, and then I wrapped up really and said, I'm glad everything is going well, and but I do wish that you would be able to be here, and on that date. And the next week I got a letter from him, and it was a very short letter. He said, Neil, thank you very much. I have already blocked the date, and I will be there, and such, and you know, that, and he showed up, which to me says, okay, you do think, you don't just say the same, ask the same question, and this is not about just that, but you don't say the same question, ask the same question, and keep getting the same negative answer. You change something. You come up with a different approach. You don't just make 6 requests verbally. You write a letter or send an email or do something that makes a difference, and put in other things instead of just, we want to give you an award. He doesn't need the award. But he came, and now he's going to be here again this year to honor the person who is going to, you know, be the new nominee. So anyway.
Oh, that's great. That's Neil Ostergren for the Roger Smith News. The famous Roger Smith, and it connects Bill Marriott, the Roger Smith Hotel in Stamford, Connecticut, and the famous teacher, my teacher, Neil Ostergren. Now, having started with the Roger Smith Hotel, how many years ago?
How many times?
How many years ago?
It was 1959.
1959. That's continuity, folks. Roger Smith News, New York City.